All right, it is some Death Guard versus some Imperial Guard. It's 3000.3.4.1 battle report for OPR Grimdark Future. And yeah, we're going to be running some custom armies, but also going to be doing some cool stuff with the lore as well. So let's get into it. Hey, before we get into that, hey, do all that YouTube fun stuff, like, subscribe, comment. Appreciate everyone's support, helping me get to 1,000. Yeah, just continue to do what I can. The low hum of engines and the clatter of boots echoed through the rumble of a ruined city. The Imperial Guard have been pushed back to their last stronghold. Their numbers thin, their morale thin. They dug in, desperately clinging to the remnants of the city's defenses. They knew it was only a matter of time. The enemy was relentless. Through the gloom they came, a tide of death and filth, their very presence seeming to warp the air around them. The Death Guard, the Heretics of Nurgle, moved like a tide of slow, inevitable rot, their bulging, bloated forms cloaked in decay, and their armor stained with the sickness of 1,000 battles. From behind the crumbled walls and twisted wreckage, the Imperial Guard prepared to meet them. Hardened eyes, hardened by years of war, the soldiers tightened their grips on lasguns, steel eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The battle will be a contest between men whose courage was their only shield and the creatures born of death and decay. So this is a 3,000 point battle. It's a standard scenario with 5 objectives. In the future, I plan on bringing in some additional extra actions, but for now, we're just keeping it basic. Some 3.4 playtesting, and I'm trying out 2 custom armies that we're trying to work from a competitive play. So one is my Human Defense Force competitive, and the other one is a Blight Disciples, which is basically a Plague Disciples redesign. I'll put both below. Both are sort of testing period, and also for this time, I'm going to be trying to do more of an abbreviated bat rep. I'll be using Universal Battles too, but I'm going to be trying to make some of these bat reps a little quicker, so that not going through every step, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so the army lists, and just keep in mind these are in their testing phase, so changes could come. Alright, so first of all, for the Blight Disciples, or they're basically Plague Disciples, but they're going to be redesigned. I really like this list. It's coming from the other people in the forum, which I like the idea of these guys having both a combination, so they have Unwavering, which is basically the AP, reducing the AP of all shots, and they can also get in Putrid as well as an optional one here. So if they really want, all the army starts off with Unwavering, which is basically reducing the AP, and then they can also add Putrid on top of it. So I really like this idea. I like this idea of just really bringing in some different things, making these Plague Disciples sort of extra tough with the ability to just have both the Putrid and the Unwavering on all of them. So we've got a Harbinger. I'm running these guys with just 2 Great Axes, so that's going to be 4 AP4 attacks with Reap. The other thing this army is it has a very Reap heavy style to it, so it also has a Caster 3 as well. So just a really beefy unit for 725. Then I've just got a Blight Lord. He's got Dark Tactics, and he's also got a deadly AP4 weapon as well, along with a Blight Rifle and just some Putrid skin as well. 2 Blightlings. Both of these guys have the Corrosive ability, which I like with Blightlings, as well as their Putrid, and they also come with Reap on their weapons here. So that's the thing with this redesign. It's sort of working more on the Reap side of things rather than the Poison. And so this is still a beta test, but it's an interesting one. Some Blightwalkers with Putrid, Slow, and Undead. Just some nice 100 point, really tough chaff. Then some Cultists, I'm running them with just 2 Flamers, and they've just got the Unwavering here, so 155 is pretty good with them when they're just running basically those 2 Flamers. Some Blight Brothers, they have their Blight Rifles, and again, in this version of it, they just not only have Unwavering, which reduces the AP, they also have Putrid. And in this version, they have an 18-inch range with a AP1 and Reap here, so a little shorter ranged, but really powerful, and then just 2 burst Blight Rifles here. So I like this redesign of Blight Brothers where it's a little shorter range, but really bringing in that Reap. This is actually a pretty nasty unit. Then some Blight Raptors running with both Unwavering and Putrid and Furious, Flying Ambush. They've got their Blight weapons, which are running the Reap as well with AP1. So just a 380 is a little pricey, but just a really solid unit. Then some blight destroyers. I have these guys running with dual blight weapons here. So I think this is another just really nasty squad. I didn't choose to this. So this is the thing I was trying to do. I wanted to have a little bit more of a defensive unit. This is a all comers list. So I didn't give them ambush, and just chose to just run them, walking up. I think they just have the toughness. Again, 4 attacks apiece with Reap is pretty solid. I've got a Blight Beast. Blight Beast has Slime Trap, which is going to reduce the movement. It's got Unwavering, Putrid, and Regeneration. So this thing is pretty tough. And then it's just got its 6 attacks here. Finally, a Blight Drone. It's running Unwavering and Regeneration. It's got its double Blight Cannon, which is a Blast, AP1 Reap. And just so, again, a lot of Reap in the army. I think this army is going to be pretty good. Still needs some testing, though. Let's just look at those spells. So, again, this is a custom list. One thing they do is they have a +1 morale, which is pretty interesting. On their level 2, they actually have a -2 to the morale test. So this is a pretty nasty ability. For level 3, in this particular army, the designer has actually 2 buffs. Well, one is a debuff, basically reducing the charge by -3, and then the other one is giving +2 units, +2 defense rolls. I'm not a big fan of 2 level 3 buffs and debuffs. I think the level 3 damage spells are really needed. So that'd be something, but, we'll see how it goes. This is just on the board here, so here is my Harbinger. I've then got my Dark Lord here. He's actually running by himself. I wanted to try this using a Dark Tactics here. Here's just the Plague Brothers with the burst rifles. I've then got the Raptors coming in here. That's those guys. Here are the Destroyers coming in with their Blight weapons. The skeleton sort of figures are the zombies. I've got 2 Blightlings right here. Here is the Plague Cultist, and here is the Drone, along with the basically the Chaos Spawn or the Chaos Beast here. That's just sort of zooming in here. You can just sort of see some of these models, and were designed pretty well. I really like how the models came out here. Another designer designs these models, really nice, and just going into that Blight Drone is really nice. And then here is the Blight Beast. All right, for the Human Defense Force here, so this is my own custom Human Defense Force redesign. I've got 3 company leaders, one that has basically battle drills, which is going to be exploding. It's going to be furious. And then Private Guard on those Peacekeepers. This is going to give those Peacekeepers quality 4. So he's running this as sort of more of a hand-to-hand guy. I think in my second one, with my redesign, I allow my company leaders to get 2 upgrades. So in this one, he's got both Take Aim and Furious. So he's pricey for 145, but he's just going to be running by himself and just going to be, again, just double buffing between a +1 AP and a +1 to hit. And then finally, I've got a Master Telepath. He's going to be running his Caster 3 as well. He's also going to be running by himself, where this company leader, he'll be running with this 20-man Peacekeepers. 3 10-man units of Conscripts with just the light rifles, so really nice. Some really good chap at 65 points a pop. 20-man unit of Peacekeepers with their stun batons for that taser, and then I've got 4 energy fists into the squad. They also have flashbang grenades, so this is a squad I really like with the HDF, giving these guys actually some decent hand-to-hand stopping power here with the shield wall and just the flashbang grenades. That's going to allow them 12 inches to give 2 units -1 to hit in melee. Then I've just got a standard infantry squad with some light shotguns. I have them basically as pistols. I've got a 20-man infantry squad that's going to have the company banner that's handing out the morale buffs, and also they have regen on themselves. 14 rifles, 4 grenade launchers, and I've also got 2 autocannons. So this is, at 415, it's pricey, but this is actually a really good squad. It's tough. It's handing out morale buffs. It's got a lot of also different shooting weapons. That, 4 grenade launchers, even only hitting on 5s, is just, this can put out some decent shooting. I've then got a weapons team. 385 is pricey, but I've given them the relentless upgrade, and basically I've split it. 3 lasguns, 3 missile launchers. I've did this so that if they need to, they can split fire. So, yeah, I think I'm going to try to see how the weapons team does. A veteran squad that has medical training and also a +1 defense, as well as some shred rifles. I've got an ogre squad running up with their AP4 fists, as well as shield wall. And finally, I just got a heavy tank. Heavy tank that's got a battle cannon and 2 pulverizer guns. That's basically so it's 2 of them. That's going to be 4 AP2 blast shots coming along with the heavy machine gun. So this heavy tank's going to put out a lot of shooting each turn. Let's just look at these HDF redesign spells. So +1 to hit is really solid, along with a -1 to hit for 2 inches. I think it's situational. I think it's good for a level 2. And then finally, I've got the level 3 give 2 units AP Tusk 2 when they have a hold action. So that Empower Ammo level 3 is going to be really nasty if I get it off. Just looking at the HDF here, here's my 20-man squad with the company standard and the autocannons, and here's the grenade launchers. Here's my my infantry squad with, I have this light shotguns, but I actually just have them as 2 pistols. The 20-man private guard with their shields and stun batons. Here's the 3 units of conscripts. I've got my veterans with their shred rifles, the ogres below them. Here's the combined squad of lasguns and missile launchers, and heavy tank on the very far right. The red is the master telepath. The center one is going to be the double buffer, so he's the sort of the aged guy. And then the guy on the far right, he's the company leader that'll be going with the private guard, basically a commissar. So yeah, it's just sort of looking in here. So just, you know, again, here's the grenade launchers on this squad. You can see here is the hammer is basically the energy fists. Just going over here, you can see here I've got my conscripts along with my 3 HQs. And then just following over here, the ogres, the veterans, and then the heavy tank along with the weapons teams. All right, so let's look at the setup here. So again, playing against myself here, I just roll, and I end up setting up. So these were the 5 objectives laid off here. I didn't know what side I was getting on, so I tried to keep some of the objectives along the center here. So again, just so you know, we're playing that the buildings are blocking terrain, but if you go into them, if you touch them, you can shoot through them and be shot at with cover. So same thing with the trees, that the buildings serve as both blocking terrain as well as cover terrain if you go into them. Just some difficult terrain, a hill. The rocks are actually just straight up blocking terrain as well. And this is the same thing with the ruins here. So you can just saw here a nice mix of blocking terrain, difficult terrain, and cover terrain. So after the setup here, the Human Defense Force get to go first. They set up on the top. What I really tried to do was keep a lot of my, I know I've got some ambushing units coming in, as along with scouting units coming in from the plague, the blight brothers, basically blight disciples. So I try to keep a lot of the units, like the heavy weapons team and my HQs and tanks, sort of in the center. You can see I'm basically doing a lot of protecting to keep these guys from getting ambushed. And again, I have a lot of my scout units, chaff units up front, so that if he is going to try to first turn charge them, it's not going to go very well. For the Blight Disciples, again, I actually scouted up 1 unit of Blightlings and then my Blight Beasts just to try to get closer to these objectives. The Drone and the Lord are going to be staying back, trying to do pot shots. Here's the... again, here, as an elite army, I'm going to try to focus on just 3 objectives, but I'm also sort of forcing the HDF player to sort of spread out. Here's the Blight Brothers along the Destroyers. That's going to be sort of running up here. I've got the zombies, and again, just coming into ambush. I've got my Harbinger coming in along with some Blightlings, and then I also have my Raptors coming in. So I've got some pretty powerful units coming into ambush here. All right, so with that, let's go into turn 1. And again, it's the Human Defense Force that got a chance to go first here. So again, I'm going to just start going a little quicker here. I don't want to sort of spend every single time. Basically, the first few moves are just people just moving up. The Blightlings are running up and just towing in this objective. One thing you can know here is that actually with my conscripts, I'm being very aggressive. I'm pushing up on these 2 objectives here. And that's because it's actually much easier to hold objectives than to seize them. So as the Human Defense Force player, if I can hold these objectives at the end of turn 1, it's going to be harder for him to grab them. The other thing is that right up here, I have both my HQs and the casters cast basically +1 to hit and +1 AP on this tank here. So one thing this army is really trying to do, it's trying to do a lot of buffing up. So in this particular one, I'm concentrating a lot of my buffs onto this this heavy tank here. Yeah, and again, you can just see the Blight player is also moving up. I do get my drone up and shoot, kill a couple of conscripts, but I also, miss one of my blast weapons here. And then again, to response to that, these Blight Marines or Plague Marines, they move up, they shoot these conscripts, and they just completely wipe them out here. But it does, even though I lost some conscripts, I didn't lose them for free because now these Plague Marines have exposed themselves here. So just sort of keeping in mind, you can see other things moving over here. That was that shooting that just sort of happened. Wiped out one of those conscript squads here. And then you can also just see a continued more movement here with just everyone sort of just moving up very tentatively. That heavy tank walked up and just burned all its pluses, killed 8 of these Plague Marines. And they actually waver after that. So it's a 3-up with no fearless. But again, that tank, especially with how buff these guys are, I think it was like AP3 and hitting on 3s for a lot. No, hitting on 2s with AP3 and AP2. just murder some of these plague disciples here. Yeah, pretty nasty. The other thing is I want to protect my plague drone, so actually the dark, he moves towards the right, and he actually dark tactics backs this plague drone. Again, these guys have some pretty nasty, deadly shooting, so I'm trying to protect this plague drone. So being sort of hit and run with this plague drone for now. Being a little cagey. Yeah, that's just showing up more pushing up where human defense is pushing up to this objective. The Blight Destroyers are actually pushing up here, trying to try to grab this one. You can just see on this first turn, people are just sort of moving up and trying to grab things here. Yeah, that's just sort of seeing some movement. I did have this squad. Infantry's going to move up. I gave +1 morale to the tank, and actually the Private Guard guys along with the Commissar. So again, these guys now have morale tests on 3 up here. They actually shoot at the destroyers. They do 5 wounds. That's actually pretty good. You know, that's a lot of auto cannons, lasguns, and missile and grenade launchers. And that the thing is that with AP 0, that unwavering basically doesn't. You know, AP 0 can't be reduced further. So it's actually a nice little counter to them. They take 5 wounds as well. And yeah, this is just the end of turn 1. You can just sort of see here the one thing the Blight Disciples did is I didn't get a chance to shoot anything. So these this heavy weapons team just sort of stayed put. I pushed up with the Private Guard and the Commissar. Again, just to have 2 units on these objectives. I also pushed up with one of my other conscript units, so actually being pretty aggressive here. You can just see the human defense force has basically grabbed 3 objectives. The Blight Disciples have grabbed 2, but the key thing is these center objectives now start turn 2 in the human defense force's favor. One thing I want you to know as well, a great way to counter ambush is basically have some units that you need protective in the center right here. So you can see I've got my HQs and I've got my units here. I don't want these guys getting ambushed, so I protect them. And then you can see here, I form up sort of a circle here. One of the reasons I've pushed up pretty aggressively is I've actually pushed back his ambush range. There is a tendency when you face ambushers to sort of stay very passive. You actually want to push up a lot and force your enemy back. The other thing is you can see here is I have one guy that's basically protecting this 9-inch bubble here. So he actually can't drop, or the Plague Disciples can't drop ambushes anywhere in this area. And that's just by good positioning here. That's what you want. It's a great way to counter ambush. Force, spread out your units, use your 9 inches just to cover everything here. That's another reason that you really do need chaff, because having chaff, I was able to do this. So yeah, so just sort of keep that in mind in turn 1, the reason that I was so aggressive, while also still, again, protecting against that ambush. All right, it's going to be turn 2, and the Plague Brothers do get a chance to go first here. So with this going on here, at the end of the day, I decided to actually focus on these 3 objectives as the Plague Marines, as more of an elite force. What you don't want to do is you don't want to try to contest all of the objectives. So at the end of the day, I decided to focus on these 3 objectives on the left. So I dropped my Harbinger in cover, so he's going to be pretty protected, and I dropped my Raptors here. They're going to be going after these Private Guards as well here. So again, I just need to now just push into these 2 objectives, and I can grab these 3 and basically win the game. So the HDF as well, they're going to try to grab this right one here, but I am forcing these ogres to come this way just by these Blightlings here. So yeah, Plague Birds get a chance to go first, and I go ahead and just send in these Raptors into this squad here. So, and again, these Raptors, they do a lot of damage. That's a lot of AP1 reaping attacks. Actually do like 16 wounds, so it's a truckload of wounds here. I think I lose about 2 in return because like 3 in return. But at the end of the day, they passed their morale. I actually rolled a 3 on the morale test, which is just what they need. So that shows you the power. If these guys didn't have that +1 morale, they would have just broke. So I was able to, again, have these guys just stick. At that point, these guys back off. I got a few of these Raptors as well. So, and again, this squad is still alive, which is a pretty good thing. Yeah, I just go ahead and I just move up one of my infantry squads. They kill a couple of occultists. The drone moves up and actually shoots and kills like 5 of these conscripts. Basically, waves them. They're only quality 6 up. At this point, just more movement. I have the conscripts move up here. I think they shoot a few things, ineffectual shooting, and then the zombies just go ahead and charge these conscripts while they're wavered, beat them in combat, and auto-rout them. And then another thing as well, you see the zombies, they actually move back into cover, so the majority is in cover. It's a really good tactic when you, if you can, after you kill something, try to get the squad that won combat into cover. It's just going to give them a little extra protection here. So, and this is one of the advantages, this private guard squad is still alive. It's actually able to, it actually goes ahead and charges these raptors. Actually, with 12-inch flashbang, I get -1 melee on the destroyers and the beast. So again, that's a nice little thing that those flashbangs were able to just, you know, put some -1 melees. They go ahead and they kill about 2 more, and then I don't think they lose any in return, but the raptors do pass their morale here. But again, that's just some extra value that this private guard squad is getting off here. Yeah, at this point, I just, you know, I send in my Harbinger, it goes ahead and just charges the squad. So one, I cast the -2 morale on the weapons team in here. It's just basically putting these guys on 6-up, 7-up morales. And then I also cast the +2 defense on the destroyers and actually on itself here. So turns out I roll really bad with the Harbinger, and I only kill like 3 of them here, and that really sucks because they attack back and they're able to remove that +2 defense on the Harbinger. So that actually is annoying that I rolled sort of bad and I didn't just wipe out the squad here. So that is annoying, but still the Harbinger, you know, did some damage. They actually fail their break test and they run, and then the Harbinger just sort of, it consolidates up, just sort of, so it's grabbed this center objective and just protecting it as well. Yeah, again, this squad moves up. It gives out some more morale checks, gives a morale to itself, and gives a morale to this heavy tank here. It takes some shots. I think it actually doesn't do any wounds, so it splits its fire. It puts the autocannons into the Harbinger, does a wound. Everything else goes into the Blight destroyers, but I don't do a single wound. These guys have basically a 2-up armor save. So, but at least I removed the +2 defense on the destroyers here and put 1 wound on the Harbinger. All right, so this is just showing some movement here. One, I have my level 2 caster moves up, spends 4 tokens to cast a +2 AP shooting on the tank and this weapons team. So now, because I've been able to protect these casters, I'm able to just, again, start just buffing up my units here. So again, that's one thing. Always try to pre-plan, try to have enough to get that 3-up level 3. So I saved 1 token from last turn to get that 3-up on that level 3 here. So again, yeah, this weapons team and this tank are really just getting buffed up as well. So just sort of keep that in mind. We have some additional movement, like with the cultists moving up, actually using their flamers to kill about 6 of this squad and actually wavers them as well. Now again, those flamers on those cultists are just really solid. At this point, the tank moves up. It shoots. It does a decent amount of damage, but not a lot. Only an additional 5 wounds, and that's a lot of AP4 shots going into these guys. So I do manage to kill 2 more of them, but still, so I am whittling down these destroyers, but these destroyers are still tanking a lot of damage. That's a lot of firepower coming out of that tank here. So the ogres just go ahead and charge onto these blightlings here. They just instantly kill them, and then they're actually able to consolidate here and grab this far right objective. And then again, this is my other caster. He both puts the +1 to hit on these heavy weapons teams, and actually puts the +1 AP over into these veterans here. So again, I have the time now with these 2 guys in the back. There's a reason that I don't put these guys into separate squads. I want these guys on their own in the back, buffing their units. So we buff up the heavy weapon squad, buff up the veterans. And finally, with the fully buffed up guys, these guys shooting into this Harbinger, and they do 9 wounds into them. So it was a lot of shots. This Harbinger is really tough. But still, to put 9 wounds on it is quite a feat, considering just how much it took just to put into it. And then the vets move up. I have some other stuff moving up. Basically, the vets move up and they shoot into the raptors. I think they kill 4 of them. Yeah, kill 4 raptors. The raptors pass their morale. But still, again, just really cleaned up these raptors down to a single guy here. So one thing to keep in mind here is that you can see here that the Plague Marines have both grabbed these 3 objectives. So they've sort of done their purpose, in which they've pushed in, they've grabbed these 3 objectives, now they just have to hold them. While the HDF have basically pushed here on the far right to grab this one. Again, that's really taking one of my biggest squads, these ogres, out of the game. In retrospect, the ogres, I sort of feel it was a mistake to commit a lot of my army's hand-to-hand power over here just to kill some lightnings here. But yeah, another thing just keep in mind is that the HDF was just able to create space with its units to protect its key shooters and its buffers in the back. So these guys, I had the time to buff up my shooting units. That allowed me to really whittle down so I whittled down the destroyers, whittled down the raptors, and also just put, like I said, put 10 wounds on this Harbinger. It's just 2 wounds left here. So again, right now the Plague Marines are actually leading, having these 3 center objectives here. And they get a chance to go first next round. So it is turn 3, and the Plague Brothers, or Plague Marines, get a chance to go first here. So after a lot of, there was a lot of thought, I went ahead and, so as the Harbinger, there was 2 really worrisome things. One, I had this heavy weapons theme, but I think the tank was much more of a worrying thing. I went ahead and I just charged the tank. I actually cast the -2 morale. Again, I got that off, and I put it on the infantry squad and put it on the tank. Actually went in, did 10 wounds into the tank. So this tank is at a -2 morale, but it still had the +1 morale from the company standard. Actually rolled the 5 up, and the tank sticks. So that shows you again just the power of company standard. That I rolled a 5 up, and that was just enough with that +1 morale. This tank stuck with after getting 10 wounds. So that's a big disappointment from these Harbinger. You know, I really was hoping to take out that tank here. Yeah, at this point we have the infantry squad. They move up, re-put that +1 morale on the tank and put it on the conscripts. They actually shoot into these destroyers, do another 3 wounds, and actually do 3 wounds. They split their fire. Do 3 wounds to the destroyer and 3 wounds into the blightlings. So again, just sort of clearing them out as well. And actually, they contest this objectives here. This single raptor goes ahead and just, I'm hoping to just waver these guys. He charges these veterans, kills, I roll great. I kill like 4 of them, or 3 of them. But actually, they attack back and they kill him. So I wasn't able to proc that morale check at -2, even though. So this raptor took a lot of guys with him, but still died. At this point, they consolidate back, and then they move back and they actually shoot these. Yeah, they shoot into these cultists, kill like 4 of them, and actually just waver them as well here. So I was, again, really hoping to waver these guys. Just didn't happen. So, again, these guys, they recontest the objective and actually waver some of those cultists. The Chaos Spawn just went ahead and just charged this infantry squad that was wavered last turn. Yeah, just kills them and then consolidates back into the center, sort of protected as well. This rock is doing really good. And yeah, so the heavy weapons team actually didn't have a lot to shoot at. So I actually went ahead, I needed to reposition them. So I actually just I didn't use relentless, and I move up and actually pumped all of my shots into that Harbinger. I didn't do a single wound into him. That Harbinger was really tough. So yeah, all these guys, they shot into the Harbinger, and I just didn't get the rolls off here. At that point, this plague drone, it just moves up, shoots into these guys. Actually, I hit, but there's some good armor saves, and I only do 5 wounds. If I could have done 1 more wound, I could have procced a waver check at a 6 up. But yeah, the heavy weapons team only lost 5. They're still around here. Yeah, at this point, the double hero buff. So both of my heroes in the back, they just move up, and they're basically buffing this tank. So this is this hero. It's giving a +1 AP and +1 shooting on the tank. Actually, the mage does a move up and actually casts the level 2 deadly AP4 spell on the Harbinger. Finally kills the Harbinger. So the mage kills the Harbinger, and then I have my buffer move up, give the tank +1 to hit and +1 AP here. So again, those guys are just doing a lot of work. The destroyer actually just charges these conscripts, gets them below 50%, but I roll another 5 up, and the conscripts actually stick. I would say in this game, Human Defense Force have been rolling some pretty good morale checks, but those company standards continue to come through. Yeah, the tank just moves up, shoots into the zombies and into the swarms, actually causes enough to cause both to fail their morales. So these guys are undead, so the zombies get cut down with undead down to 1 model, and the blightlings actually just waver here. So that tank with that +1 to hit and +1 AP is just continuing to just do work. Yeah, that's the end of turn 3, and you can just see some more movement. I have my Dark Lord move up, and actually Dark Tactics up the Plague Drone onto this center objective here. You can just see some of the conscripts, they just move up. They try to shoot the Blightlings, but they don't do anything. I think these guys unwaver, these Plague Marines on the bottom here. And you can actually see these ogres, they start rushing around the center trying to contest these objectives here. And you can just sort of see here, now I've contested this far left objective. So now it's actually 2-2. The Plague Disciples actually have 2 objectives, and 1 is contested as well. One thing as well is that as Human Defense Force, I left a lot of these 1 and 2 and 3 man squads alive. That actually meant that the Plague Brothers actually finished last because they had all these 1 and 2 man squads here. So actually Human Defense Force gets a chance to go next time. A good tactic, if you want to go first, just go ahead and make sure that you leave a lot of these small units on the table here. Yeah, some of these morale buffs are actually going to clear out next turn here. Yeah, but you can see the Plague Brothers absorbed a lot of damage, and they actually had some good saves, but it is a lot of stuff shooting at them as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind here. So actually on turn 4, the Human Defense Force actually gets to go first. And yeah, the first thing I do is I've got these ogres. They just charge this Plague Beast. This is a lot of AP4 Furious attacks. They just go ahead and just murder this Plague Beast. Yeah, just instantly kill. And I actually are able to consolidate and get 1 guy to contest this objective. That's actually a big deal because that's a lot of meat in this unit for these ogres actually to contest this objective here. Yeah, the drone actually just moves up, blocks this from any guys coming here, shoots at the ogres, does like 5, actually only does 2 wounds to the ogres. So the ogres are they're pretty tough. They're like armor 3 up and tough 3. So yeah, I had some decent saves, and no once, or only 2 wounds from the ogres. Yeah, the infantry they just move up and they shoot at the 2 remaining Plague Marines. So they go up here, they shoot at these 2. They only kill 1 of them, but that's actually enough to wait. These guys waver again. So Plague Marines have not had good waver checks. So all these guys they shot, and they managed. I think they actually shot into the destroyer too. The autocans. I didn't do any damage to the destroyer, but again, wavered this. Waver this Plague Disciple. Yeah, these cultists, just zooming a little bit, they move up and they shoot at these ogres, do 3 wounds. They kill one of these ogres, and then finally, just it's getting really down to the wire. It basically came down. I needed to clear out these ogres, so the Lord just went ahead and just charged in. I do 3 wounds into these ogres. I basically win combat, but the ogres roll the 4 up, and the ogres don't waver, and that basically ends the game. Because I basically didn't have anything. The other thing is that I theoretically could have charged here, but actually these conscripts, the conscripts move up, they shoot this remaining zombie and kill it. So with that thing dead, I have no way basically to get these ogres off the objective. And it is basically a 2-1, right? This objective on the far left is contested. The bottom one blows to the Plague Brothers. And then this center one's contested, and then on the far right, you can see the HTF still have these 2. So I just called the game there. It's just a 2-1 victory. I could have played it out further, but yeah, the game was won. A really good game. I think both armies played well. I think the Human Defense Force had some better roles, and especially those morale roles were key. And actually, that morale buff was so important. So I think the HTF actually had a little better morale rolls, and actually the Plague Marines didn't have good morale rolls. Still, it was a very good game here. Just some learning points. I think morale buffs are so huge in the game. Having some company standards in your units is great. That Plague List, I think I could have done better with that Plague List. Maybe have a little less deadly. It was an all-comers list. I think that if I went back, that Harbinger wouldn't have all those deadly 4 weapons. He would just have sort of a regular weapon here. Chaff also continued to be key in the ability to trade up. I always say, be aggressive against ambush armies by using Chaff to spread out. If you can spread out and sort of use that 9-inch bubble to keep your ambushers away, you really force the opponent's ambushers back. For HDF, try to have 1 or 2 units focus on buff and try to just protect those units. So like the heavy tank and like the heavy weapons teams, try to focus your buffs on a couple of units. For elite armies, always try to focus on just a few objectives here. The other thing I would say is that, as you can see, try to avoid putting buffer heroes into units here. I had two company leaders that were just in the back by themselves. I didn't put them in units so that they can just do nothing but buff up things. All right, hey, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Send me some army lists or some custom armies. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much.